Democracy gives everyone the rights of expression, a passage to a world of freedom, a world that is free, that is fair, equitable, and that is just. But indeed, how just, fair, and equitable is democracy to the people? How economically free are the people in a world of globalization? Join the discussion, have your say here, live on Ben Television on News Punch. Thank you for being part of the program. This is Voice coming to you from Ben Television. My name is Tunde Alabi. On the show, we're taking a look at immigration, legal matters, immigration, property, housing, and how they affect you and how you can deal with them if you do find yourself in need of any legal assistance, advice, or representation regarding any of those legal matters. My name is Tunde Alabi. On the show today, I've got my guest in the studio, Jennifer Obaseki, senior partner at Obaseki Solicitors. Today, we'll be taking a look at sexual abuse and harassment and domestic violence, how they affect you, what you need to do if you become a victim of domestic violence, sexual harassment. It's not only women that can become victims of sexual abuse and domestic violence. When we talk about sexual abuse, domestic violence, do not think it's only women. Men also suffer domestic violence. But we're going to listen to this from the professionals, Jennifer Obaseki. She is also the CEO of FN Human Rights and also Group Against
Professionals Against Gender-Based Violence.
Professional Against Gender-Based Violence. Jennifer Obaseki, thank you for joining us on the program today.
My pleasure.
Talk us through the processes of, let's start with sexual abuse. What in the face of the law is sexual abuse?
Sexual abuse is any unwanted conduct that is of a sexual nature that is deemed to be harmful towards either a woman or a man or even a child. So abuse is not necessarily having to be of a physical nature. So that's one, let me say, misconcept that we have to dismantle. Abuse can come in so many different forms, but when we talk about sexual abuse, even verbal abuse can have a sexual connotation. Emotional abuse as well can have a sexual connotation. But when we talk about sexual abuse, it's commonly relating to the physical touch, but the physical touch doesn't always have to be there. So it's very important that if people feel that they are being subjected to a form of sexual harassment, then they should very easily feel confident in making a complaint. The sexual abuse is unwanted conduct, and it can be one of contact, so that's physical, but there may not also be formal contact. And we talk about different forms of contact, and you can commit sexual abuse in different manners of contact. So, for example, somebody on a train that stands too close to a woman or a man and then exerts themselves by making a form of contact, whether rubbing, whether gestures, can amount to a form of sexual abuse.
Let's concentrate on our community. Are there incidents of sexual abuse and report? It does appear to me that we don't have women in our community don't actually come out to report sexual abuse. Talk us through some of your experience and how you think that operates in our community.
It's unfortunate that within the Afro-Caribbean community, and I can only talk about my direct experiences, our women are less likely to report sexual abuse and sexual harassment and domestic violence. Why? Usually because we have some barriers, inhibitions. Sometimes there's lack of papers, so women are too scared to come forward. The instability, maybe they've moved into a new relationship or into a new area. They don't feel that they have enough support to do so. Other times, they are sometimes serial victims. So victims from within their home, victims within their local community. Therefore, they see it as them not knowing any other thing apart from being abused. So they don't report it. But there's a series of reasons why women from ethnic communities do not report forms of abuse. I must say that One of the recent things that's happening also is girls being initiated into gangs, and sexual violence also being used. Girls being used as what they call bait or honey trap, used to create honey traps, used to entice boys. So a young boy being, let me say, conscripted into a gang, girls being put forward to, let me say, sugarcoat them and to entrap them into the gang lifestyle. Normally they wouldn't be able to get hold of a girl, wouldn't know how to talk to a girl, but a girl being used to seduce a young person into a gang. And girls actually being initiated by having acts committed on them. So sometimes they may feel too ashamed to make the reports. So there's very many reasons why women, why men may not report sexual abuse or sexual harassment.
Okay, how do we deal with this in our community?
Now, it's a very tough one. There's no one solution to dealing with sexual abuse or sexual harassment or domestic violence. These issues are often taboo. Another reason why people may not report it is because we don't openly talk about sex in our community. So to talk about sex and then talk about abuse is a difficult thing. Many people that are seen as pillars or community leaders or even religious leaders are also very uncomfortable when dealing with the subject. Not just uncomfortable, but untrained to deal with the subject. So unfortunately, you might find that where a young person may have reported an incident to, for example, a pastor, because the pastor's not trained in safeguarding and children's welfare, they don't know how to then deal with it, especially if it's within the community. So sometimes you have to ask, are you safe in church? Are you safe within the hands of your own pastors or your imams if it's inside a mosque? So another thing is lack of training, lack of awareness within our community, apart from the cultural barriers. But we do have to start with the acknowledgement that it's going on. We have to start with the acknowledgement that there are support groups out there. So, for example, if you don't have your papers and you feel that you are enduring domestic violence, sexual servitude or abuse because you think you have no other option, I tell you today you have options. I tell you today you have support that will be out there if you make the report. Again, you think about things like trafficking, people being trafficked for sexual purposes. Now, again, there's provisions within the Home Office, there's a lot more training that's out there. You can be supported by the Salvation Army and other third-party organisations that are specially trained to help and deal with your issues of housing, deal with your issues of Home Office reporting, and help you along the way. In addition to that, and acknowledging that it's going on, knowing who to refer people to. The fact that, as I said, the community champions, few have that level of training with regards to safeguarding. But once the referral is made to the right organisation, to the right institution within the arms of government, you should get that support. If you don't get it, there are lawyers out there that are specialising in dealing with issues such as trafficking, in dealing with issues such as domestic violence, so you can get protection. Many people don't understand the full extent that the law has to protect them. If you're a victim of domestic violence and you don't own the home that you live in, you can get injunctions to stay in the home while your abuser is kept out. There are police powers. Police can tell somebody that lives in a property to leave for up to 72 hours if they're causing disruption in that property to protect the person. So the person that's living there that's being victimised can call the police. If you're too scared to make the report, you can indicate to the police that I'm not in a stable position, I need to get to a lawyer. Try to exclude this person to give me time to even think and get legal advice. That's if you don't have that immediate ability to get an injunction. But the police have to see enough to be convinced that that is justified. And not only that, you have to then take the steps. It's hard. Many people, you say, why we don't report? It is quite hard, especially if English is a second language. How do you start explaining to somebody what exactly has happened to you, how you've been physically molested or abused if you don't know how to express that?
Let's come back a little bit to churches and mosques. We have loads of religious organizations dealing where children go to churches.
Correct.
And not many of them are trained. We have Sunday school where the teachers are not trained.
Or checked.
Is it a necessity? Is there kind of a provision, a legislation that any organization dealing with children must have whoever is in charge checked?
You know, when it's a religious institution, and we look.
When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor, you look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. Obaseki Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we'll be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020 7739 7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com.
In the past, there wasn't such focus on children's welfare and safeguarding, but now it's common knowledge and, let me say, standard practice for a religious organisation to make sure that those who are dealing with children are at least trained. But because it is religious and a charity, not necessarily a government institution or an institution of formal training, there is no obligation to make sure that your Sunday school teachers have a DBS check and are trained. But it is important and good practice for churches, mosques, or any institution to make sure that anybody dealing with the children that are attending your institution, your premises, or dealing with your program have a DBS check and also have a level of training with regards to safeguarding. You know, it's sad that pastors don't put this as a priority, or imams don't put this as a priority. Just because somebody comes with goodwill to come and serve, and you think, okay, this person can stay with those 5 children in that room, let me go elsewhere. I can go and do my preaching, or I can go and do my sermons. You don't know where that person has come from. You don't know, you can't see what their intention is. You can only see what's on the outside. And we've seen from many of these charities, the Save the Children scandal, the Oxfam scandal, that many of the people that were going to do international charity work were set out to go and abuse. They see it as a level playing ground. Many paedophiles actually see churches and mosques as fertile ground for them to get victims. So if you are not doing background checks on the people that are working in your institutions, you are failing the people that attend your institution. You should be doing that as a matter of standard and good practices. And also emotional abuse that happens in churches. When you label people as being possessed or having other issues, and these may be children at times that have autism, or even have mental health problems, that are wrongly labelled and unfortunately scarred for life because of acts that have gone on that have been carried out by people that are not trained in dealing with children.
Right. Let's go back to the issue of domestic violence. Just as you said earlier on, there are people in relationships who are victims of domestic violence, but for certain reasons, including not having the right to remain in the United Kingdom, and during the violence being meted out to them.
Yes.
What are their chances? What hopes have they got? Say, for instance, even if they have the right to remain in the United Kingdom, the man that's giving them, on whose right they are remaining are on the child, they are dependent on somebody to remain in the, so they are afraid that getting out of that relationship that is abusive and violent may curtail their right. Would that be right? What are their chances?
Now,
it happens at both ends to a man and a woman.
Human beings are human beings. So, for example, if you are here in the UK and you're the dependent of an EA person Obviously, March is the deadline, Britain's leaving the EU. Right now, we have people who are rushing to do their EEA applications. Very important. I always like to remind people that the deadline is coming. If you're in a situation where you're in an abusive relationship in that context, number one, you have provisions where the caseworkers within the Home Office can look at reasons why your sponsor, that's the abuser, is not giving you documents to help you with any further applications you're making. So there's that provision to, let's say you've exhausted your 5 years and you want to now apply for your permanent, and there's issues with regards to proving the continuity of relationship due to domestic violence. You might be able to make some detailed submissions there. There's also further provisions under the European regulations to enable you have continued rights of residence in any event. So even if you can't get your indefinite, you might be able to have continued rights of residence. So don't let domestic violence be a reason why you feel you have to stay attached to that abuser if they're an EA national. Apart from that, if you have children in that scenario and the child has a British passport, you can apply for further leave to remain, as you know, as a parent of a British child. But that may mean that you have to then go on to the 5-year route, in which you will then have to get your indefinite leave to remain. So it means applying, getting it 2.5 years, then renewing and getting indefinite leave to remain. But when we look at these situations with people now, we have to think about, how do we preserve their best status? How do we secure them their best form of settlement, if I say it that way, and how we can also try to secure them the costs, because of the cost of immigration applications. So you think about going the EEA route, which is £65, and you think about going the parent of a British child route, which is £1,033 plus the NHS fee. Then you have to also think about, okay, that one is 5 years again, and this one is going to be a continued rights of residence until the situation changes, or we can go for the permanent if we can convince a caseworker to give it to us. Do you see what I mean? So it really does come down to the expertise of your legal advisor. I cannot stress it enough. Immigration is an area of extreme expertise, and a certain person in that, even that little situation that I've just explained there, depending on the evidence, the caseworker will advise you the best route to go. One route may take you an instant way with the right submissions. Another route may take you 5 years with a lot more costs and repeat extensions, with the need for an additional extension. Then if we go the other route, if it's a person that's not dependent on the EA national, we have the set DV option, which is there for people who came in as spouses and then were given their initial period of leave to remain, and when they're going for their permanent, maybe the situation of domestic violence has exploded or become unbearable, so that person may have to leave the relationship and apply under set DV. These forms require evidence. So if you've reported to the police, or you've not reported to the police but you've reported to your GP, and then you've maybe reported to community officers, and you've been able to document injuries and incidents, then that will go attached with the form, and then you can still acquire your settlement through that route. If you're not able to, or you're in a position where you've come on discretionary leave to remain, or there's a situation where you're not actually going for your permanent, you can then think about your human rights and outlining submissions under human rights provisions. That's Article 3, Article 8, Article 2, again providing evidence, not necessarily asking for protection from that person, but showing elements why you have exceptional circumstances, also why you have a right to remain in relation to other family life and support that's in the United Kingdom. Especially again, if you have children, you would be able to use the child, if the child is British, to remain in the United Kingdom. So if your abuser is British, you have discretionary leave to remain based on your relationship with them and also your child. You do not have to stay in that relationship if it's being, let me say, characterized by domestic violence. The final thing I will say on this matter is, if you're dead, I cannot help you. If you're dead, no one can help you. And if you're dead, your abuser, if it's your partner, may be the one looking after your children when you're gone. So it's so important that you have that courage, that courage to take a stand and take a step that will protect you and save your life.
All right, Jennifer, thank you for joining us on the program today. That one is in a relationship and becomes a victim of domestic violence, the abuser has given the person the right to remain in marriage. If the marriage breaks down, say you're on a 2.5 year route, if the marriage breaks down within the first 2.5 years, if you leave the marriage, will that damage the person's chances of continuing residence in the UK?
Well, it's not a
Just
case,
yes or no?
It's not as simple as that.
It's not simple. Okay, we'll take it.
You know, let me explain to you.
Because
You've got
of
2.5 years. You're in a relationship that's characterized by domestic violence. You leave the relationship. Can you apply for an extension on your leave to remain? The fact is, it depends on your whole circumstances. Do you have exceptional circumstances? Do you have children? Do you have family that's here? If you go back to your country, are you going to be persecuted? Very many factors.
Because
so
of our time,
very difficult question, but ordinarily it may be hard. But if you have exceptional circumstances, it is possible.
All right, how far we can go? That's how far we can go. Follow up on that question I asked on our next program. If you're married, you're in a relationship, you're married to a man who is abusing you,
or a woman
who is abusing you, and you are still in the first probationary period of your leave to remain, what can you do? If you leave, will it damage the relationship? Watch out for that discussion as it comes. We'll bring it to you next program. My name is Tunde Alabi, and this is Jennifer Obaseki Solicitors legal talk show coming to you live from Ben Television. You can reach us on the phone number you find on the screen anytime. Until we come your way, Jennifer, thank you for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your start of democracy gives everyone the rights of expression, a passage to a world of freedom, a world that is free, that is fair, equitable, and that is just. But indeed, how just, fair, and equitable is democracy to the people? How economically free are the people in a world of globalization? Join the discussion, have your say here, live on Ben Television on News Punch.